Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this. My name is Marr Jurelle Bruce, and I'm a professor of American Studies at the University of Maryland, College Park. I am honored to participate in Mass Hysteria. I want to start by thanking Joanna Braun, Jennifer DeVere Brody, the Department of Theater and Performance Studies at Stanford University, and everyone else involved in organizing this fabulous conference. My presentation today is called Ms. Lauryn Hill Sings Truth to Power in the Key of Madness. It's a riff on material from my forthcoming book, How to Go Mad Without Losing Your Mind, Madness and Black Radical Creativity. Before I introduce Ms. Hill, I want to tell you a bit about the broader book project. How to Go Mad is a sweeping study of 20th and 21st century Black artists who instrumentalize madness in radical art making, self-making, and world making. In the book, I ponder the mad in the jazz repertoires of Buddy Bolden, Charles Mingus, and Sun Ra, in the literatures of Amiri Baraka, Gail Jones, Susan Laurie Parks, Richard Wright, and Ntozake Shange, in the comedic performance of Richard Pryor and Dave Chappelle, and in the protest music made by Nina Simone, Kendrick Lamar, Lauryn Hill, among many others. I realize that madness is a shape-shifting social construction and floating signifier that evades stable definition. For the purposes of my project, I provisionally propose that madness encompasses at least 4 entities in the modern West. First is phenomenal madness, what we might also call experiential madness. This is intense unruliness or chaos of mind, producing fundamental crises of perception, emotion, meaning, and selfhood as experienced in the consciousness of the so-called mad person. Second is medicalized madness, which signifies a range of so-called mental illnesses as defined and diagnosed by medical authority. Such serious conditions include schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and the antiquated diagnoses of medical insanity and hysteria, among others. Third is furious madness, madness as anger, a state of intense and aggressive displeasure. Fourth, and finally, and most capacious of all these categories, is what I call psychosocial madness. And here I'm referring to any radical deviation from the so-called norm within a given psychosocial context. Any person or practice that perplexes and vexes the psychonormative status quo is liable to be labeled crazy. But it seems to me that psychosocial madness reveals more about the avowedly sane society branding an object crazy than about the object so branded. When you point at someone or something and call it crazy, call them crazy, you reveal more about yourself, about your sensibility, your values, your notion of the normal, the terms you use to describe the world, the reach of your pointing finger, the lilt of your accusatory voice. You've revealed more about yourself than you've revealed about that supposedly mad entity. So there we have it in short: phenomenal madness, medicalized madness, furious madness, and psychosocial madness. Launching from this 4-part schema, How to Go Mad illuminates how Black artists adapt madness as content, form, idiom, metaphor, aesthetic, affect, strategy, and existential posture in an enduring Black radical tradition. By going mad, these artists expose and convey the chaos, the strangeness, the wonder, the paradox, the danger, in some, the phenomenal madness that permeates racial modernity. Beyond approaching madness as an object of analysis, How to Go Mad adapts madness as methodology. As I propose and practice it, mad methodology is an ensemble of epistemological modes, political praxes, interpretive techniques, affective dispositions, existential orientations, and ways of life. I'd be happy to discuss mad methodology further during the Q&A. But now that I've offered some broad background about How to Go Mad, I want to zoom in upon one of my study's protagonists whose story speaks to the symposium's themes of politics, affect, and performance strategies. Enter Ms. Hill. Hill scaled the treacherous summit of global pop music stardom in the late 1990s. Her debut solo album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, is an amalgam of social commentary and infectious grooves spanning and fusing hip hop, rhythm and blues, soul, rock, reggae, gospel, and beyond. The album burst into the global music market and quickly became one of the most acclaimed and mega-selling hip-hop albums in history. Atop that treacherous height, Hill was hailed as musical genius and pop culture prophetess. Just 3 years later, by 2001, according to media pundits, Hill fell from the favor of the mainstream market. And to have those same pundits tell it, she veered across the supposedly thin line that supposedly separates genius from madness and prophecy from lunacy. There, she was widely assailed as Madwoman. I'm interested in how pop culture imaginaries impute madness to Lauryn Hill and how Hill herself produces, claims, embraces, and instrumentalizes madness for radical art making, self-making, and world making. To embrace madness is risky business for a Black woman musician operating within these racist, sexist, popular milieus, where Black womanhood is double-crossed by myths of Black female hysteria, or myths of female hysteria, and myths of Black savagery and subrationality. In the remainder of this talk, I ponder the specter of madness on Hill's 2002 Unplugged album and her 2012 Black Rage single. I also examine tabloid allegations that Hill is crazy and Hill's own narration and theorization of her alleged craziness. Ultimately, I want to chart how Hill speaks and sings truth to power in the key of madness with a sound that sometimes booms and sometimes sputters. On June 21st, 2001, nearly 3 years after that auspicious debut and following a year-long absence from national media spotlights, Ms. Lauryn Hill reemerged to record the acoustic Unplugged 2.0 at MTV's Times Square studios. She had shorn her trademark locks, abandoned a pristine persona that one critic poignantly called forbiddingly perfect, dismissed a massive entourage, and picked up a new set of accoutrements: a guitar, a stool, spectacular sorrow, a frequently hoarse voice, solitude on stage, a radical critique of celebrity culture, and craziness, according to many, including Hill herself. But let's dive into Unplugged. During a prelude before the first song, Hill asks, "You guys are cool?" When an affirmative murmur comes from the crowd, she responds, "I'm talking to the people in my head too." Hill and the studio audience, and maybe the people in her head, chuckle together. Tellingly, in a 2002 Essence article entitled "They Call Me Miss Hill," poet and novelist Pearl Clage recounts a similar exchange during a performance in Atlanta, Georgia. Clage narrates, "You guys cool?" Hill asks the audience, and when we clap an enthusiastic yes, she laughs and points to her head. "I'm talking to the people in my head too." It's important to note that Hill uttered this same banter on 2 occasions, right? This wasn't a random or spontaneous evocation of madness. It was deliberate, concerted, repeated. On one frequency, Hill's declaration that she's speaking to the people in her head is likely a reference to the sound technicians who communicate with her via earpiece. But I want to argue that on another frequency, she deliberately conjures medicalized madness. A reference to people inside one's head potentially evokes dissociative identity disorder, a condition that entails multiple subjectivities inhabiting an individual psyche. Her statement also conjures schizophrenia, which may manifest as the impression of sounds, often voices, what clinicians call oral hallucinations. To be clear, I am not suggesting that Hill is clinically schizophrenic or dissociative, nor am I claiming that Hill actually hears voices other than the technicians. Instead, I'm suggesting that Hill is aware that she has been diagnosed crazy by the tabloid press and is signifying on her alleged madness. She's chuckling, joking, but she's also communicating a poignant message, I think. In these exchanges, Hill reminds audience members that they are not fully privy to her psychic and epistemic interior, and that they cannot presume her performance to be exclusively, I should say, for their consumption. Her studio audience is not the only public, not the only constituency to whom her words are addressed from that stool. Hill evokes the people inside her head as though they are a symbolic counterpublic outside the dominant public sphere, inaudible to dominant hearing, but heard by Hill herself, who concerns herself with their welfare. In her capacity as hip hop artist, as political hip hop artist, Hill has claimed to speak to and for various counterpublics, Black youths, as she's described them, poor people, and the have-nots. Here, the people inside her head become a symbolic counterpublic, an honorary counterpublic too. Also, as it relates to this claim that she's speaking to the people in her head, consider this: a mad woman is liable to see or talk or hear entities that cannot be detected by sane folks. Hill plays upon this feature of madness, its aptitude for discerning what lies beyond sane senses and sensibilities. Hill also emphasizes that madness renders the mad woman opaque and inscrutable to normal-minded people. And of course, here, I'm essentially saying that Hill is inhabiting the role strategically, provisionally, of mad woman, quote unquote mad woman. And perhaps ironically. So yes, Hill emphasizes that madness renders the mad woman opaque and inscrutable to normal-minded people. Though she's spotlit and mic'd on stage, she is still making clear that there are aspects of her life world on that stage that are beyond the audience's hearing and seeing. Even as she is strapped with a microphone in order to be clearly heard and positioned under a spotlight in order to be clearly seen, she's essentially announcing, you can't fully hear me or see me, crazy as I supposedly am. In this scene, madness is a strategy for opacity. So that was just the prelude. I want to shift now to an actual song on the album called I Gotta Find Peace of Mind. People inside Hill's head, or more precisely, voices inside Hill's head, do battle in Peace of Mind, which is Unplugged's longest and most emotionally fraught performance. Before Hill begins to sing the song, she announces, see, this is what that voice in your head says when you try to get peace of mind. She describes at least two voices, sometimes seeming to originate outside her head and sometimes from within it. The voices are adversaries in a sort of war in her mind, war for her mind as she longs for peace of mind. At the start of the song, she strums her guitar and softly, dreamily describes a man who afflicts her. He says it's impossible, but I know it's possible. He says it's impossible, but I know it's possible. He says there's no me without him. Please help me forget about him. He takes all my energy trapped in my memory. I need to tell you all the pain he's caused. The identity of this figure is ambiguous. Within the idiom of the heartbreak ballad, he might read as an abusive, hurtful partner. Within Hill's avowedly Judeo-Christian theology, he might read as the devil who tempted Eve and taunted Job, the devil who stokes doubt, undermines faith, causes pain, and brings ruin. Within a psychoanalytic framework, he might be a fantasy, her anguish and insecurity condensed into a heckling voice in her head. He might also be an iteration of what I call the talking wound, the antithesis of Freud's talking cure. A talking wound, as I theorize it, is a trauma that clamors over and again in the consciousness of its victim, that echoes like a sinister refrain, intensifying its hurt with each iteration. Thankfully, though, there's another figure in this songscape, the righteous nemesis of he who says it's impossible. This benevolent being redeems and uplifts Hill, where his adversary degraded and oppressed her. If that other figure is an abusive, hurtful man, this being is loving and redemptive. If that other figure is a locus of fear and insecurity, this being brings peace of mind. If that other figure resembles the devil who leads to damnation, this figure is like God who delivers salvation. As Hill please to the one who says it's impossible, or pardon me, as Hill flees the one who says it's impossible and embraces the one who brings her peace of mind, her voice rises and passion swells. In fact, the song is a prolonged musical and affective crescendo in which Hill tremulously climbs toward peace of mind and once at its threshold implores, please come free my mind. Please come be my mind. Can you see my mind? Won't you come free my mind? As Hill utters these pleas, she begins to weep. Her voice strains and quivers as she repeatedly proclaims, free your mind, and it's possible. Note that she shifts from focusing upon her own struggle, free my mind, to issuing a clarion call for others to seek freedom, free your mind. Let's watch a clip quickly. Okay. His performance is a testimony of heartbreak and healing, a parable of Armageddon writ small, where angelic and demonic forces do battle. And it is also a performance of phenomenal madness, an episode of psycho-spiritual crisis, an expression of intense distress, an outburst of unruly emotion. In Peace of Mind, Hill confesses her grief, cries out for help, unveils extraordinary vulnerability, proclaims her gratitude, and achieves breathtaking catharsis on that stage. The song might be the site of a mental breakdown. And it's also, I think, the site of a psycho-spiritual breakthrough that brings her closer to peace of mind. So I want to skip ahead to the outro of Unplugged. Lauryn Hill foregrounds the theme of madness on that outro. In response to rumors about her alleged craziness, she proclaims, yeah, I'm crazy and deranged, you know, and I'm free. I might play these songs with a twitch a little bit just so people know. Y'all think that's a curse? I'm telling you, it's a blessing. When I was a politician, boy, everybody just all over me. You know, I didn't have a private moment at all, not one private moment. Now that people think I'm crazy and deranged, we have peace, total peace. And listen, as far as I'm concerned, I'm crazy and deranged. As far as y'all know, I'm crazy and deranged. You know, I'm emotionally unstable. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. When Hill describes being crazy and deranged, she is invoking psychosocial madness, right? That which departs from the psychosocial status quo and garners accusations of crazy. She claims that her crazy and deranged reputation is an asset insofar as it helps her evade surveillance and preserve her privacy. Perhaps her madness scares, bores, or confounds interlopers enough to keep them at bay, granting her the space to find freedom and peace. In this passage also, Hill jokes that she might, quote, play these songs and twitch a little bit just so people know, unquote, that she's mad. A twitch is an abrupt and unruly bodily spasm typically associated with mental and or neurological disability. Here, Hill claims the twitch as a gesture within an embodied idiom of madness, as a visual corporeal cue in a mad performance praxis, as a kinesthetic sign that might be displayed to convey craziness and ward off antagonists. So after that Unplugged performance, Hill was promptly deemed crazy by media pundits. She was brainwashed and inexplicable per Fox News. She was tore up, tired, lost, and unwound, according to the San Francisco Bay Guardian. She was unhinged in the Los Angeles Times. She was unglued and rambling, to have time tell it. She was bizarre, baffling, and perversely fascinating, according to Entertainment Weekly. She was crazy by Vibe standards. I want to emphasize that many seem to read Hill's purported breakdown as hysterical lovelorn womanhood, invoking sexist tropes of the overwrought and love-crazed hysteric who has come undone under the thumb of a hurtful man. Rumors circulated that that hurtful man was either her then partner, Rohan Marley, or perhaps her former Fugees bandmate and ex-lover, Wyclef Jean. So in the years after her Unplugged performance, Hill has frequently been pathologized as crazy for a number of idiosyncratic business practices or artistic choices or personal sensibilities. For example, Hill's preferred title has been a source of contention. During her miseducation era, she was quite comfortable being called Lauryn, but post Unplugged, she has demanded that she be referred to and billed as Ms. Hill. This insistence on title has been spun as a symptom of melodramatic egotism and delusional grandeur in the media. Hill, for her part, has explained that she demands the honorific as a show of respect and deference in a world that too rarely respects Black womanhood. So, what others frame as pathology, she frames as a sort of Black feminist praxis. Hill's reported lateness to concerts has been another target of pathologizing rhetoric, as though she suffers from a pathological inability or unwillingness to keep time. Likewise, her supposed lateness to produce a studio recorded follow-up to Miseducation has been widely decried as proof of arrested artistic development. And I have reams and reams of citations from the tabloid media making these sorts of claims. For her part, Hill has insisted that her life and work are not synchronized to corporate clocks and consumerist calendars of the pop music industrial complex. So here, what others frame as pathology, she frames as a refusal to capitulate to capitalist imperatives. And some of us might find her argument there, her defense of lateness, more or less persuasive. Hill has also been deemed mad for her experimentations in performance and sound post-miseducation. In concerts for the past 15 years and more, she tends to radically reinterpret and revamp miseducation era hits like Do Up That Thing and X Factor. When she performs these songs, she changes song keys, shuffles vocal arrangements, overhauls instrumental accompaniment, dramatically modulates volume, radically accelerates tempos, and performs with a hoarse and cracking voice quite often. I want to give a quick poignant example of the pathologization of Hill's sonic experimentations. At a 2007 performance, the Village Voice decried her hoarse singing and reported, quote, Lauryn wails, sounding not a little crazy herself. She performs a song of passion and desperation, now sung by someone with plenty of both, who realizes she's losing a crowd that probably assumes she's losing her mind, and maybe she is. So this dramatic description suggests that Hill is suffering an existential dispossession, losing her audience, losing her voice, and losing her mind too. So what others frame as madness, this sort of dramatic reinterpretation of her old music, she claims is an emphatic insistence on leaving behind that former forbiddingly perfect version of herself and embracing an honest, transparent, and free new incarnation of herself. So what I'm thinking about is how Hill's insistence on being called Ms. Hill, her tardiness to concerts, and her musical experimentations have all been spun as crazy among pop culture pundits and publics. Madness has become the default discourse to disparage Hill. Remember, though, that Hill isn't merely the object of these imputations of madness. I want to emphasize that she herself is a critical theorist of madness who repeatedly embraces it. Consider, for example, what she declared to a concert audience in Los Angeles in 2006. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not crazy. I'm just a Black woman who's super smart, who can't be bought and can't be bribed. I'm not a machine. I give people my truth. Today, if you're all those things, they think you're crazy. If that's the definition of crazy, then I'm crazy. Hill is describing a pernicious form of psychosocial madness that weaponizes the accusation of madness in order to degrade and disempower. She describes an anti-Black, sexist, profiteering status quo that wants to commodify her, purchase her wholesale, and use her as a machine to mass produce a hegemonic order at the expense of truth. A status quo liable to label her crazy if she refuses to surrender. You'll see at the end, in the last sentence of this quote, she finally embraces the term crazy insofar as it serves as a signifier of resistance, a signifier of a sort of fundamental antagonism with that status quo. I've discussed Hill's evocations of medicalized madness, phenomenal madness, and psychosocial madness. And I want to turn now to another performance in which she evokes and mobilizes furious madness. In 2012, Hill would debut a song called Black Rage, a radical revamping of Rodgers and Hammerstein's song, My Favorite Things from the musical Sound of Music. Compared to the original show tune, Hill's version accelerates the tempo, adds a hard driving drum beat, adds a dissonant staccato piano and blaring electric guitar as accompaniments, and incorporates Hill's breathless rapid fire delivery, vocal delivery. Most poignantly, though, Hill subverts the original song's cheery disposition with woeful new lyrics. Black Rage is founded on 2/3 a person, rapings and beatings and suffering that worsens, Black human packages tied up in strings. Black Rage is founded on these kinds of things. Let's watch a quick clip.
Listen to the words. Rapings and beatings and suffering the worst. Black human packages tied up in strings. Black rages founded in all these packages. Black rages founded on blatant denial and squeezed economics, subsistence survival, deafening silence and social control. And black rages founded on the other side. When it goes back, when it beats, when it feels sad, I can hear him all these calories, and you know I feel so bad.
Where the phrase raindrops resides in the original song, Hill replaces it with Black Rage. Whiskers on kittens becomes 2/3 a person. The verse bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens is supplanted by rapings and beatings and suffering that worsens. The line brown paper packages tied up with strings is traded for Black human packages tied up in strings. No longer a litany of childlike whimsies and delectable objects, the song is recast as a tragic inventory of injustice, terror, and death. Hill offers a scathing indictment of anti-Black dominion, invoking slavery, lynching, rape, racial capitalism, police brutality, psychic violence, and myriad other state enforced and or state sanctioned atrocities. If the original song is a confection of idyllic fancies, Hill asserts that Black slave labor and exploitation has cut the cane to provide such sweetness. Remarkably, the recitation of these atrocities comforts Hill. She proclaims, I simply remember these kinds of things and then I don't fear so bad. To know the origins of Black Rage empowers her to critically, conscientiously address it and perhaps use it. Indeed, I think the song is not simply a description of Black Rage. It's an act of Black rage, instrumentalized for pedagogical and inspirational effect. Rage suffuses the instrumentation. It suffuses the sound of Hill's voice as she hollers those lyrics, and it suffuses obviously the content of those lyrics too. The song is an act of Black rage. And Hill follows her predecessor, Nina Simone, whose Mississippi Goddamn was animated by anger at white supremacist violence and Black abjection in mid-20th century America. I'm going to wrap up here, but in the Q&A, I'd be happy to discuss how I think about Hill in relation to Nina Simone, as well as Kanye West, as well as Dave Chappelle, and others within the sort of genealogy that I'm constructing of Mad Black performance. So now I want to close by emphasizing that Hill wields madness as a multivalent technology for insurgent performance and as a performance strategy, to use the language of the symposium title. She invokes the people inside her head as a counterpublic set apart from normative public spheres. She undergoes a musical mental breakdown, which is also an ecstatic ecclesiastic breakthrough while performing on stage. She brandishes craziness and derangement to fend off intruders and pursue peace. She instrumentalizes rage as a musical and political force. And Ms. Hill theorizes madness as a site of revelation, refusal, experimentation, and maybe even tenuous freedom. More to come. Thank you.